situation we should have never had to even think about, should have never happened. And on the Middle East, that's been going on for a lot of years, centuries and centuries. It just keeps going. And we are making a lot of progress, so that's all I can report. But some very, very big talks are going and detailed talks are going on right now on both fronts.
Mr. President, you said that your national security advisor learned a lesson after a reporter.
Excuse me, I didn't make you. Go ahead, please.
Mr. President, the ceasefire agreement that was brokered today.
I would look at this a little differently from Ezra Klein. I mean, I get the point that he's making. I spend a lot of time around voters who support the president, ardent supporters of the president, and I've talked with many of them about this. They don't care about this issue. I'm going to be honest. They're focused.
That's just not true.
Can I finish my point,
Yeah, you
please?
can, but it's just not true.
And then you can rebut if you disagree.
Please.
That's the way I like to do this.
Go ahead.
So my point is, they're not focused on this. They care about immigration. They like what the president is doing there. They care about tariffs. They like what the president is doing there. When you ask about this issue, yeah, it was stupid. They shouldn't have done it, but I'm not really focused on this. And I think if you were to do a focus group with many Trump supporters, that's probably what the qualitative results would be of that focus group. Go ahead.
I entirely disagree, and I encourage us to bring that focus group in here tomorrow night and fill it with veterans and people who understand national security and understand the stakes and understand that this is beyond politics. And even
many of whom voted for Trump.
Many of them, all different. I've been hearing from folks across the spectrum, and everybody's saying, whiskey, tango, foxtrot. How could this possibly happen? And where's your honor? You want to lead the military? You want to lead young men and women, send our sons and daughters into combat? Where is your honor? You have to uphold the Army values, and that starts with telling the truth and demanding accountability and accepting failure when it's on you. Pete Hegseth is responsible for everything they do and everything they fail to do.
Yeah,
that's what Americans want to see. Someone take accountability and responsibility.
I think you're right. I don't think you're going to find a single person who would disagree that the way they're handling this is incorrect.
That's a big, big deal, though.
No, it is a big deal. But my argument politically is, as a motivating political factor, this is not going to move the political needle one way or another.
I disagree.
Boy. So it seems as if the mainstream liberal media is going to do what the mainstream liberal media does anytime they get a chance to attack the Trump administration, right? They're going to take something that happened, they're going to blow it out of proportion, and then they're going to talk about it endlessly. And let's just say that when it comes to so-called signal gate, which, you know, anything that's named something gate, right? You already know that now it's become political, right? It's now a political game. Let's just say that I don't think this political game of obsessing over what happened with the signal text, the chats, I don't think that's going to work. And one of the reasons why is because, one, they're exaggerating, right? They're overblowing the story. And then two, these are the same people who told us that, hey, emails from Hillary Clinton that were on a private server, not that big of a deal, okay? It's not that big of a deal, okay? And these are the same people who did not demand any type of accountability for what happened during the Biden administration when we had service members die due to the lack of competence from the Biden administration and the DOD that his administration was running. They didn't really have much to say about it, right? I mean, they just kind of said, okay, all right, well, let's move on here, right? Now, all of a sudden, they want to be stuck on this for days, right? And I just don't think that this is going to be a good idea to abuse what happened here. But that's what they're going to do. We know that's what they're going to do. And let's just say that some Republicans are not taking it, right? They're standing up and they're saying, no. You're not going to continue to obsess over something that at this point we should probably go ahead and move past.
Yep. Anybody else?
Should the defense secretary?
What country are you? Wait, what country are you from?
From the UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting. Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
Okay,
and you, no. You should care about your own borders.
Do you care about American lives?
No. Let me tell you something. Do you care about people from your country? What about all the women that are raped by migrants?
Do you care
No,
about
by migrants. No, do you care? Okay, you're done.
Do you care about American lives being put at risk?
You know what? I don't care.
Service members fighting for your country.
I don't care about your fake news. Do you have a relevant question? Yeah, this is an American journalist. Thank you.
I'm an American, and I'd like to hear your answer to what she's asking.
I'm not answering her question because I don't care about her network. If you would like to ask, I can answer.
Do you have any concerns whatsoever about the complete disregard of operational security from the top level of this administration?
You want to know about complete disregard about operational security? You should talk about the Biden administration and how they ripped our borders open to terrorists, cartel, child sex trafficking, human trafficking, and drug trafficking across our borders for 4 years. The Trump administration is doing a great job, and I stand by their statements. I stand by their statements. My comment to you is I'm thankful to President Trump that he is leading us out of wars, that he's ending the war in Ukraine, where American lives could have been killed if Joe Biden was still president today, whether he liked it or not. We're talking about NPR and PBS today. We're talking about fake news that was funded with federal funding from American taxpayers. That's what this is about today, not journalists from the UK that should care about
a journalist is being vilified for exposing failings in the way that your government conducts itself.
Yeah, so if I was a Republican, I would not want to be lectured about national security from the same people that told us that the border was not open, right? There's not an invasion at the border. What are you talking about, right? I don't want to be lectured about national security from those people, because these are the same people basically defending illegal immigrant gang members being in the country and committing crimes, right? Heinous crimes against people, children, women. They're defending it and they're boo-hoo-whining crying because we put gang members in a maximum security prison in El Salvador, right? They're boo-hoo-whining crying, talking about the rights of illegal immigrant gang members. Again, these people don't give a damn about national security. They allowed our borders to be wide open, right? The party that allowed our borders to be wide open. The media who gaslit the American people to try to make them believe that wasn't actually happening. Yeah, no. You're the last people to talk about national security, right? I do not want to hear it, okay? And again, Trump administration officials don't want to hear it from CNN, again, a network that supports open borders, because you're going to have U.S. Secretary of Veteran Affairs, Doug Collins. He's going to go on CNN and do this interview with Kaitlan Collins, who is going to try to ask him the same questions over and over and over again for a subject that he basically already answered questions about, and he's going to flip the tables on her. And I got to tell you guys, this is pretty glorious, right? I love the fact that he turned this around on Kaitlan Collins. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this.
My next source tonight is in the administration and is the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Doug Collins. I should note, no relation, Mr. Secretary. Thank you so much for being here. You served in the Navy and the Air Force. How would you have felt if information like this was talked about in an unclassified group chat, if a Navy fighter pilot, is in the air?
Well, I think the one thing, Kaitlan, it's good to be with you tonight. I think the president and those involved in the chat, which I was not involved in the chat, have explained that. I trust the president's opinion on this. I trust what's been going on. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. My opinion is that my job is to take care of veterans in this country as they come out of service, and that's what I'm going to continue to do.
We heard from some of your former colleagues up on the Hill today, some Republicans who said they don't like how the administration is handling this, that they're kind of tying themselves in knots by saying it wasn't classified information. Do you believe that a mistake was made here, though, to have this conversation, to add a reporter and to have it on an unsupported, classified group setting?
Kaitlan, as I've just told you, I've just answered the question. I wasn't part of it. And, I'm not going to speculate more than what the president's already talked about and those who've been involved have talked about. But we'd love to talk about the veterans.
Yeah, and I do have questions about the veterans. But given what we saw with the group chat and how this was used, you are a member of the cabinet. You obviously know these other members, several of them who were in there. Is this typical for the cabinet to have conversations over Signal? Is this something that you use?
Well, Kaitlan, as soon as you undoubtedly do not want to talk about the VA, I have a question as VA Secretary. As Cabinet, I want to ask you, because I've been curious about this, because my job is to take care of veterans, and I would like to know why CNN is hostile to veterans, especially one in Florida, where you just had a $5 million defamation suit taking offense at a veteran who was trying to help people. In fact, one of your employees actually said, we're going to nail him. I have a question for you, Kaitlan. Is that employee still employed? Are you really concerned about veterans? So if we don't want to talk about veterans now, you want to talk about everything else, I'd like to hear from CNN as the Veteran Cabinet Secretary why CNN seems to have a problem with veterans.
Well, Mr. Secretary, respectfully, my question was about whether or not you as a member of the cabinet use this. And respectfully, I'm conducting the investigation. And I do have a lot of questions for you on Veterans Affairs. But I don't think
No,
it would be
what you want to do
unwarranted
is you
to
want to talk
ask.
about a subject.
If
What
you
you
as a
want to
member
do
of
is
the
talk about a
cabinet-
subject that I've already answered. And if you want to continue this like this, that's fine. But there are VA employees who are working very hard. There are veterans who get their care from the VA and they get their benefits from the VA. And it does me no good to speculate on something that I've already asked and answered. So I've asked and answered your question. Why don't you answer mine? Are you still, is this person still employed who said they were going to nail one of my veterans? Who you had to do a $5 million award from a jury because of defamation, and then you settled the case. Answer my question.
Respectfully, sir, I'm asking the questions here, and I have no involvement in what you're referencing there. But if you don't want to answer the question about whether or not it's commonplace for secretaries in the cabinet to use Signal, you are running the Veterans Affairs, and we do have a lot of questions about that because there's been big things happening. You and I were just talking about this before this interview started, and I told you I'd get to these questions about Veterans Affairs. You don't want to answer that one. We'll talk about what the VA did announce, that they were suspending $2 billion.
Yeah. So you say that, you heard that. Okay. Here's the thing, right? Kaitlan Collins here is getting called out because she continued to ask this dude the same question over and over and over again, right? He clearly, he don't want to talk about it. He says, listen, I defer to the president. The president's spoken out on this. He put his opinion out on this. And at this point, it is what it is. And let's be real. I mean, that really is what this is at this point, right? Nobody else's opinion matters when it comes to situation except the president, right? Except the president. That's it. Okay. And the president has already stated his opinion, but yet she continues to ask the dude the same question over and over and over again because she didn't bring him on to talk about the veterans. That's not what she brought him on to do. Okay. She brought him on to have him try to smear the Trump administration. And he wasn't going to do it, right? When he wasn't falling for her little gotchas, right? Because that's all this was. And this is what they do all the time. They bring people, we want to talk to you about the vets, right? We want to talk to you about the vets. And then as soon as the interview starts, she's asking back questions about this Signal chat thing. And the Secretary of Veteran Affairs, Mr. Collins, Secretary Collins, already told her 1,000 times that, hey, the president put his opinion out there and that's it. That's where I'm at this point, right? I'm concerned about the veterans, which, by the way, again, as Secretary Collins pointed out, CNN doesn't really care about vets. They don't care about vets because they cared about vets so much, they would not have went out of their way to smear a vet, right? The story that he was talking about, the lawsuit, we talked about this before, okay, on this channel briefly, but CNN settled a defamation lawsuit that was brought by a U.S. Navy veteran and security consultant because in November 2021, Jake Tapper's show suggested that Young had exploited Afghans seeking to flee the Taliban by charging exorbitant fees, okay, labeling the operation as a part of a black market. And basically CNN went out of their way to damage the reputation of his business, right? And essentially basically made it harder for him to survive and for him to feed his family, right? And he's doing honest work as a veteran, and CNN decided to smear the guy, right? Smear the guy. And then they had to settle the defamation lawsuit, in which they, at the time, they were basically begging the guy to go easy on him because CNN apparently is having some financial difficulty.
You heard General Young, plaintiff's expert, testify, and he kind of made this offhand comment, and I thought it was very interesting. He said he was watching the coverage of the wildfires in Los Angeles, which are really heartbreaking. And he said that CNN's coverage was outstanding. And he wasn't wrong. Because when natural disasters break out, CNN is there. And that's hurricanes, that's wildfires, that's earthquakes. When conflicts erupt, like some of the ones we've heard in this case, CNN's there. And providing all of that content, that really important content's expensive. But it has a really tremendous value because we as Americans need to understand what our fellow Americans are going through if they're in California or if they're on the Gulf Coast and get hit by a hurricane, or if there's an earthquake in Northern California, or if there's a war in Ukraine. All those things are really valuable. So you've made a decision that CNN's liable, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a reasonable path forward. So over the next few hours, I hope it doesn't take that long, you're going to hear about CNN's net worth. And you're going to see that the net worth of the company is actually in a subtle decline. You're also going to hear about the headwinds facing the entire media environment. Media is changing really quickly. You're going to hear some of the details about that. CNN still is a valuable asset because of what it does, because of that important information that it delivers. But there are really big challenges that it faces. And you're going to hear that for that reason, almost any amount of punitive damages, and even your verdict right now, will serve as a real punishment. And I'm not coming here to tell you that what you all have done should be the end. You've decided that punitive damages are warranted, so I'm not going to tell you that some number isn't warranted. But I am going to tell you that your judgment has an effect.
But you can't sit up here and talk about how much you love veterans so much when you go out your way to smear veterans and then nobody's held accountable, right? Nobody's held accountable, which is what the secretary is asking about here, right? Have you held anybody accountable for the fact that you went out of your way to ruin the life of a veteran, right? Has CNN done that since they care about vets so much? Nah, they haven't. At least they haven't publicly announced that they've done anything, right? So apparently it's okay to work at CNN and to smear vets, to ruin their businesses, and to make the company have to pay $5 million due to defamation. Is totally fine, and nobody will be held accountable. But CNN cares about vets. Again, it's just hilarious. But hey, the media is going to do what they do, right? They're going to spam this incident, okay? And they're going to continue to talk about it. And the more they talk about it, again, they're going to delegitimize it, right? They're just going to spam it too much to the point where people are just going to start, being like, you know what? I'm tuning this out. We've heard about this 1,000 times, right? But they're going to do anything to distract from the fact that the Democrats have a record low approval rating, right? And they are on the wrong side of almost every issue, okay? The party is basically insane. There's a political civil war happening, okay? And the Trump administration, overall, they're doing good things, right? They're doing the things that the American people want them to do. And, hey, at the end of the day, stuff happens. But to obsess over it, right, which is what the media is going to do, is a huge mistake on their part, right? But, we'll see what happens. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.